Hello, everyone. I'd like to officially welcome you to Remember Everything, Instant Idea Capture with Visual Notes and Thought Trails. My name is Shelley Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today's event with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We've got a lot of really great examples. There's so many different ways to preserve information, whether it's top of your head information or really vital contracts and documents in your brain very quickly. So a lot of different samples to share with you today. We're very excited to get started.
All right, great. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my brain. And one of the things that people, we all talk about in the news and business is how to preserve an idea or how to capture that next great idea when it happens. And unfortunately, we can't schedule when that idea is going to come. It might come in the middle of the night. You might be on a plane. You might be in the middle of doing something else. So having a place, a special digital space, in our case, a brain that enables you to capture those ideas in a way that reflects your own unique thought process, as well as creating and cultivating a context for those ideas to grow, is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to cover how to start creating that framework to organize ideas, how to capture them. And we have many different capture features that we're going to cover. And the interesting thing about the brain, there are a lot of notes applications out there. We're also going to focus on, and I'm going to pull my screen up here and go to my active project areas on notes, this bottom area for me, or I know Matt has it on the side, because a lot of people, new users, sometimes get overwhelmed by, wow, what's all this thought map, what's going on here? And I tell people, you know what, that is great, and people have created, innovated, and had some very amazing aha moments through the visual interface. And of course, that's what we're going to cover, and that's key to everything. But at a very basic level, you can think of the brain as a visual notes tool. Just as you were going to, jot something down on, maybe a piece of paper or on your iPhone notes, you can do that in your brain. And your brain structure can be relatively simple, but you could take advantage of our powerful notes. So many different levels, and whatever level of knowledge management functionality you want to get out of the product, we're absolutely fine, and we support that. So feel free to, we're going to dive deep into this area here on the screen, the thought display that we call the Plex, but also into the notes section, so you can take beautiful notes. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I've got my distant thoughts displayed. This is my brain, and I like to have a brain for sort of everything in my life. So I'm just going to go to the home thought here, and this is the top of my brain. And what I like to do is create buckets for stuff in my life. And once I have that bucket, I can throw things into these buckets, whether I'm on my computer or doing this off my phone. So what are my sort of primary life buckets, as you will? Those life buckets become my foundational architecture of the first level of thought in this brain. So this is a generic version of my brain. It's a little bit more sanitized, so I can go wherever I want. Matt's going to be a little bit bolder and actually go into his real brain, but I've got a couple other brains that I use as well. So what am I all about? Well, my business. So I've got a thought here all about what I do in business. And again, below this thought, I've got the key domains. Now, I deliberately have my distant thoughts on just so you can get a sense of the scope and the breadth and the depth of this amazing, beautiful brain that I love. But at the same time, this can look overwhelming. So let me just show you. If I just click the minus, it's off. And that's the nice thing about the brain. We have different modes and different displays. You can sort of take or suck in or put away as much or as little information as you want. So if you're the kind of person who's a high volume information person that's got like the stock market on and your phone texting, and you like to, do all kinds of things, chat and work on a document, then, you probably want to show distant thoughts like this. But if you want a little bit more calm, a little more zen, then just keep it in the default mode here where you've just got that one level, and when you click on something, you'll see all that's relevant. There's no right or wrong way in how to display a brain. So clicking on any item in your brain will trigger all related pieces of information. So I've just clicked on marketing in my brain, and you can see I have a note on marketing, and I can then from there go into any number of relevant areas. So if I want to go into my public relations section, for instance, I can go there, and from there I have documents attached. I've got different press releases that I've worked on, media targets, research that I'm doing, and of course I can simply click on any of these documents, and it'll actually go ahead and launch that right on my computer. But one of the advantages of the brain is the ability to see related pieces of information that you wouldn't see in a standard file, folder, list, or search. So I'm in my public relations. These are my child thoughts below, but I have a link to Jim, VP of Public Relations, the guy that's actually in charge of public relations. And when I click on Jim, I can see who he reports to and who he's also working on, and everything that he's interested in, from personal stuff that we chat about like quantum mechanics to maybe a camping trip that we're planning. But this is my main connection for Jim. But so you can see that you get a broader range on your information than just, say, my public relation documents. It's all in this wonderful context, and it's in nesting these ideas and documents in this context that allows your information to grow and your ideas to grow in a very organic, natural way. So because we're talking about remember everything, I want to specifically target this to stuff that I constantly need to stay on top of. And I do a lot of writing, so I have a thought in my brain under marketing called writing projects. Now, one of the advantages of the brain is that I can have one piece of information effectively located in multiple contexts, and in that case, almost like hierarchies. So in my folder system, I'd sort of have to think, do I want to create a folder for my writing projects and keep it in active projects or under marketing, or maybe it's related to my team meetings? But with the brain, I don't have to sort of organize by separation. I can have all these connections and still have a very clear view of what I'm doing. So these are all my writing projects. Now you'll notice below I have my notes. So this is how we're getting into to-do lists. So often what we have is we have that to-do list maybe on our phone or sitting on our desk, and then we have our document archive in maybe it could even be on the cloud in Onenote or X-Drive or whatever, but it's not all organized together. So you're sort of looking at your to-do note, then you're going into your documents, then you might have some sort of diagram or maybe even a whiteboard of your ideas or post-it notes of new ideas, but there's really no place to bring it all together. So what we're offering here at TheBrain is sort of an all-in-one place for thinking on your computer, thinking and working. So you can see here, this is my list of to-dos. And you might want to kind of think about what you want as a thought, what you want as a to-do list, what you want as a tag, what you want as a thought type, and we'll get into all those things, but there's no right or wrong way to do this. So for me, I'm working on a lot of writing projects, and yeah, I can absolutely forget about them, especially if they're not important, like this guide to business writing. Like, that's not something I'm thinking about all the time, but it is something important, so I have it right here just sort of to remember key standards that I'm working on. So that's a thought. So things that are actual projects or documents get the actual thought placement in my brain. So for instance, company brochure, that's a thought, and I can go ahead and open it and work on it. It'll save back into my brain. But things that I'm just doing real quick that have to be done regarding my writing projects, I can go ahead and take notes. So I need to contact a web designer about content. I need to get legal approval. Maybe I need to, instead of sending the brochure to print, I'm going to add another thing here. Look for new printers. And this is my checklist of everything that I need to do in my writing projects. So I can actually go ahead and let's say I've actually I've met with Jeff to get his new vision on projects. I can click on that and that gets scratched off. So this is just the checklist in Notes. It's very, you can see it's right at the top in the formatting bar. Matt's going to go a little bit more in depth on formatting notes, but I'm just going to give you an overall functional use case view of these features, and then we'll dive a little bit more in depth and how to set these up. But so you can get a sense of how, let's say I've got legal approval, and I'm still looking for printers and getting pros in, but I've talked to the designer. So that's done. So now I've got a sense, you've got a sense of what I'm working on, but then I've got the actual projects right here. And I can continue to add things to my brain in this fashion. So if I actually want to create a new document on my writing projects, I can actually add to the notes. If I just have some ideas for, I need to think about shorter and punchier ways to describe my services. So that's just a little note. And I can, that might be more important. Maybe I want that at the top of my checklist. So I can come in here and, just like anything else, move things around, and I can move these down or put it right in here and just make it big and bold, or change formatting and things like that. A lot of people, if they have lots of notes, also like to have, our new default view is to, and I can actually go ahead and delete this as well, is have notes on the side rather than below. And you can kind of decide what works for you. For me, I'm spending a lot of time in the thought display, so I prefer my notes below. So there's these little arrows here enable me to kind of change the configuration of the brain. And everyone's different. With the new large long screen monitors, a lot of people are moving to the display of the side view of notes. And so that's our new default actually in the Brain 9. But if you like a more classic display, I just like to keep mine below. So I've got a note. I can go in here and add documents. If I want to come in here and add another document, I can link to files. I can link to folders. I can create an event. I can add a URL, and I can create files right here, and it will attach to that thought. So I can actually start doing my work in the brain. But the other thing that's great about the brain is it's going to help me remember where I can search for things. So if I want to do a search on, let's say, just social media, everything I have in social media, I can just start typing in the first couple letters of that thought, and I've got everything from my web pages to my thought contents all appearing in the brain. So if it's social media content that I want, I can actually go to that particular thought. And one of the nice things about the brain is we have a built-in web browser. So you can actually view any URLs that you have attached. So in my marketing resources area, which is related to writing, I've got some really cool websites that I reference a lot, from everything from usability to mobile content sites, and to, this is also, I'm in my usability trend area now, where I've got a link to Jacob Nielsen's newsletter on usability. So you can see how this stuff loads really nicely, and how I can make connections. So if I want to actually have this closer to my writing projects, I've got writing projects pinned. I can go ahead and do that, or maybe it's related to my new project release. So let me just go ahead and connect that there. So I'm making connections as I'm kind of thinking about things in my brain. Now, in addition to search, another key feature for always helping you remember are your pins. So at the top of your screen here, you can see I've got different fixed thoughts that aren't moving. So regardless where I move, so if I want to move, let's just go somewhere else in active projects. Let me go all the way to my horizons of focus, and this is my getting things done section, which we can cover. I'll go back to my personal area, maybe in my, let's say, personal organization section on house projects. So I might be somewhere here. Maybe I'm thinking about what I'm doing for my kitchen renovation. You can see I've got links to different things that I'm working on, visual references in my brain. So I forgot about this design, but I have it as a thought, so it helps me remember. But my pins are always static, so I can always get back to these writing projects. Now, if this kitchen renovations project becomes very important to me, I've decided it's time to take the plunge and do that renovation, and I want that sort of kind of forefront, always at the top of my mind, so to speak. All I have to do is right click, and I'm going to go ahead and select create a pin. Let me just do that. And now I've got the kitchen renovation. And maybe I don't need the thought on my GTD, by getting things done. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can also remove pins by selecting to remove them. And marketing resources, that's just kind of something I'll get to when I'm in marketing. So I'm going to remove that. So your pins will constantly evolve. So now, from my perspective, my priorities are not only mapped out in the brain, but they're represented by these key pins here. And I've got 5 of them. You can have as many or as few as you like. So I've got a quick link to my active projects, so I can get there. I'm working on a new area in my brain called business expansion. And what you can do in this case is, and that's why I have it as a pin, is I've actually created a thought where I don't have all the ideas yet. I have to build these ideas. So I've just created this area. I've only got two ideas so far, securing more funding for R&D and quality service. But as these ideas come, this is the place they're going to go in my little business expansion thoughts. So you can also have thoughts as placeholders to say, okay, come on, let's get creative. And it's just there. It's not like it's blinking at me, or I'm forced to come up with ideas, but it will remind me, okay, you know what? I have another. Let's think about maybe hiring more sales reps. Oh, and I've actually got a thought to that, or so I can add that, or I'll just say hiring more, let's say marketing staff in this case. So there's another thought that's going in. And I can continue to add. So if I want to increase our online marketing, add that as a new thought, increase online marketing. I can come in here and just add a couple more things, and I can create multiple thoughts at once. So if I want to go ahead, and another idea is to acquire marketing firm. So that's one, and then I'm going to use the semicolon to add a few more thoughts. And another idea I had was to open an office in Asia. Okay, and hit enter. And so those thoughts. So now you can see how this is getting built, how this evolves. And then finally, one other idea that I had is to create, and I'm going to say depart, let's say cross-sectional team, sort of a hybrid team of people to work together. So these are all my ideas. So I just have this area where I can come back to these ideas as they happen, or I can start to evolve these ideas. I can also look at all these ideas in my brain and give them a little bit more context, either by adding documents and evaluating them, or creating thought types or tags. So you'll notice that thoughts have different colors in your brain, and these colors can represent a thought type. So here are all my thought types. I'm just going to open them up, and I've got everything from cool projects to current projects to good web designers to new employee to my action item. So for instance, if I think that acquiring a marketing firm, this is actually a hot topic. It's something that we discussed quite a bit in the meeting, and it generated a lot of buzz. So I actually have a thought type for that, and it's called hot topic. So now, out of all my ideas for business expansion, you can see that these two are typed hot topics. So these are the ones that are not necessarily that I'm going to work on, but that are generating the most interest. And so again, it's very easy as I'm creating a thought, I can actually click on the thought to add a type. I can create a new type, or I can actually type just by selecting this. So this is just a regular project. I'll just give it a thought type so you can get a sense of what we want to do here. So let me see what thought type. I'm going to put this as urgent but not important. So there we go. So I've got a thought type for that. I've also got a thought type that I really like for my action item. So if I have a bunch of thoughts and something in a meeting becomes my action item, I can actually go in here. So I'm just going to grab that thought type for my action item. And you can see these, and this is always appearing. So anything in purple becomes really important to me. And I can change thought types. So maybe securing more funding for R&D isn't no longer a hot topic. It's something we're actually going to do. And it's my action item. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that type to my action item. And you can see I have a ton of thought types, maybe too many in this brain. You can have as few or as many as you want, and you can see what that looks like now. And acquiring a marketing firm, you know what? It's not that important, and it's not even that controversial anymore. So I'm actually going to untype it just so it kind of fades away in the woodwork. So here you can get a sense of, even within just a list of thoughts, how you can add prioritization with thought types. And then even in the next level are thought tags. Thought tags are even more interesting because what I can do is add multiple attributes to a thought tag, or a thought itself, for instance. So let's say increasing marketing. I'm just going to look at the thought. I have different thought tags for expense level. That is medium cost. So I'm going to actually tag that as medium cost. That's also something that I'm going to talk about when I go to London. So I'm going to tag that with my London trip. So these are just things that you may not want as thoughts, but just attributes. I also like to have for thought tags the time frame. Expense and time frame are sort of key. So this is something that will probably take about a 6-month time frame. So you can see I've now tagged it with these 3 attributes, and I've got 3 little tags there. And I'll show you how the tags come into play in a bit. I'm just going to tag a few more things. Opening up an office in Asia would be incredibly expensive. So I need to actually not type it. A type, you can only have 1 thought type per thought. So if I wanted to give this a thought type like maybe just active project, green lighted project, hot top, I'll give it a green lighted project. I can do that. So 1 thought type per thought, but multiple tags. So it's a green lighted project, but it is also something that we're doing again in that 6-month time frame. So I'm going to give myself time, or no, I'm going to change that. Maybe things change and I want to do that now. So I'll tag that now. I have a now, and it is something that is a high investment. So that gets a now tag and a high investment. So now you can see again, so I've got some thought tags, and if I mouse over, I can actually see, what these different tags are. Now, as I evaluate these ideas, I can add to them by dragging and dropping documents. So, in this case, I can come in for my customer service quality audit and go ahead and add documents. So let me go ahead here. And I've got a link to a customer service survey that I'm doing. So I can actually drag and drop that as a second version into this thought or on this document rather, and it'll actually go ahead and I can replace it or keep both. In this case, it's a more updated version, so I just replaced that document. And then I've got a guidelines here for creating good customer service. I'm actually going to drag and drop this PDF into my brain. And what you can see now is I've got that under this project, and I've got the document right here. So I can actually look at that document. Of course, I can click on it, and it'll launch in a separate window in my brain or on my computer, just like any other document. But if you just want to have a nice preview, it's going to get framed here in the document preview. So in this case, rather than tagging, I've got some tags. I'm actually building more knowledge in my brain on this quality customer service. And this also is going to relate to some research that we're doing. In this case, not food and fitness, but maybe actually our sales implications. So I'm going to drag and drop our sales document in here as well. So this area has become quite extensive, I'm going to tag this now as an actual project that's happening, or I'm going to type it as an actual green lighted project. So let me just green light this project. And I'm going to move this to my active projects area simply by connecting to that pin. So now we can see, and I'll just make my brain a little bigger here, that out of these ideas, we've actually started working on them. Some of these things have actually turned into action, and especially this quality customer service audit. We've added a bunch of documents, and I'm actually now have it in my active projects area, which I can now see all my other projects where I've got the writing projects as well. And in fact, since it involves writing a survey, I can actually move this if I want to change where it's positioned in my brain. I'm going to move this quality audit customer service project under my writing projects. So now I've got it nestled right here. And it's not really that related to business expansion anymore. It's just something we're doing. So I can actually come in here and unlink it as well. And so you can see your brain will evolve as you tackle these projects. So now I've got it and I see it right where I need it in my writing projects area. I still have business expansion projects, which are more what I'm thinking about, but I've moved one something that has just been an idea to something that's actually being initiated in my projects area. So that's sort of how things come together. The other thing I want to show you real quick before I pass over to Matt is just I've sort of shown you how to create and add ideas and brainstorm in a single brain, but you can actually have brains that are designed for housing, idea warehousing, and sort of thought trails on a particular topic. So for instance, I've got my writing projects here nestled in my brain, but you could have a full writer's brain as I do. So this is my writer's brain, and this is another way to do it. So if I just want to be sort of tunnel focused, I even want different, really, evocative, cool wallpaper. You can have multiple brains. With the Brain 9, we actually have a wonderful way to manage brains. I'm just clicking on this tab so you can see all my brains. There's a ton of brains, but what I have open is my my brain and then my writer's brain, which here, by the way, I've got a listing of writing projects. So you can get a sense of this is a different way of doing things here, where I've got links to all the research that I'm working on, which is a new technology document. I've got inspirations on different things. So I'm very inspired by Joseph Campbell. So I've got a link to his picture, and I've got all kinds of websites from the Star Wars origins to the power of the myth, which is actually, I'll turn this to the side. This is a YouTube video that'll just play like right in, it's actually, I need to refresh it, but I don't actually want it, it's unavailable now, but you get the idea, to people I'm inspired by, Franz Kafka. So, and you can see that stuff loads immediately. So this is, sometimes ideas need to be inspired. So creating an area in your brain on inspirations will help get these ideas, and it'll also help you remember things that, I didn't really study Joseph Campbell since university, but here he is in my brain. And, I forgot about Robert Frost as a reference, but, I've got his poem mapped out. So this is another way to, as you build your brain, these things become relevant to you when you least expect them. So it's just sort of a cool thing to do in terms of helping you trigger to remember things and get the most out of your own brain and what you're working on. I have done the same thing for, I have a mid-century house that I am working on restoring. It's in desperate need of restoration. So I just decided to create a separate brain, and I also wanted to play with wallpaper and themes in the Brain 9. So again, just another example, moving away from the heavy information intensive, this brain here. So I'm just going to give you an example, a menu, if you will, of different options. So let me turn this on. So here's a very sort of information, default colors, information intensive brain to this brain on mid-century restoration, which I'm just clicking on. Sorry, it's a little slow with the web meeting, which is a little bit more mellow. Here I'm looking at I've got my article on Washington Post, just looking at some furniture. And but this is actually very practical, and it there's some links about, I've added some images about how to restore tract homes and just different colors that you can paint these houses. You know, and it may not be urgent, but it's certainly important to me. You know, it's a big decision for me, like how I'm going to change my house. So, you know, this is another brain that has taken on significance. So, and this is another area where you can really go to town in your notes section. Like you can do all kinds of different formatting and stuff. So with that, I think I'll segue to you, Matt, so you can dive in a little bit deeper on how to format notes
Great,
and everything else.
fantastic. Thank you, Shelley, and thanks everyone. I'm sharing my my real brain today. So this is my brain. I use it every day to keep track of my own personal activities, activities with my family, with my friends, and just hobbies and interests. And I thought, what better way to demonstrate how to use quick capture ideas than in the brain, where I'm daily capturing all of the different ideas and information and just general thoughts that I have. As I said earlier, whether it's a really important project that you're working on, contract with giant presentations and invoices and so forth, or just a small subtle idea you have about a new app or some place to go for the weekend, the brain never forgets. Your digital brain never forgets. This organic brain forgets all the time. So I always put my information into a trusted, reliable source. That is the Brain application. I have it on my desktop, I have it on my mobile devices, and I have it actually on my traveling machine too, multiple locations. And I keep my brain in sync through the Brain cloud. So let's go ahead and jump into my brain. The first thing that I want to share with you, and I want to really focus on, are the notes, because that's where a lot of my quick idea captures tend to go. So I actually created, sort of following Shelley's lead, I also created a quick pin today to get you to a couple of just thoughts that I found in my brain, different note examples, so you can see what types of things go into my brain. And I'm just going to work down the list here. This brain that I have open right now has well over probably 5,000 thoughts. And I keep thoughts for everything, whether it's people, projects, recipes, places, ideas, it's all there. And so the brain obviously is my CRM system, and I keep track of all my different friends, their email addresses, their Twitter feeds, etc. And so I just clicked on one friend. You can see this particular friend, he's a builder, so I'm linking to a couple of different projects that he's currently working on. Other friends that I have through Brendan, and you can see over on the right, I've got all of Brendan's contact information. So I always just simply cut and paste contact information right into the brain. And that's where I go to find phone numbers, emails, etc. You'll also notice this question popped up in the GoToMeeting question panel about having multiple notes on a single thought. Each thought in your brain by default has one note, just one note. If you want to add additional content, you can see on this thought, I even have an RTF file. Other files have text or Word documents. But the note pops up, and down below you can see I don't really need to keep track of his previous contact information, his old address, his old business, etc. But I just add right here in the notes, there's a little tool to add a horizontal line. You can see I can add several in a row if I'd like. And I just keep that information, I just push it down to the bottom in case I ever need to look that up. What was that company that he used to work for? Or what was that idea that I had long ago? Or what was the original name of this project or product? I can always find that information. I never delete a note. I'll just push it down, add a horizontal line, and my current information is right there on the top, front and center when I go to visit that thought. So going back to my sample notes, some other examples, and Shelley showed a great example of this. If you cut and paste an image from the web, or even a YouTube video, if you just cut the URL and paste it into your notes, that video will actually preview right there in the notes. So I don't have to add that as an added attachment. I never have to leave the brain. This is in an area where I'm repairing an older Honda Pilot. And as you can see, the car is right now pulling to the right, I found a really great video on spot checking this. And so I can just click on play, and that YouTube video just starts right there in the notes section of the brain. A couple of really quickly, I'll just skip over some of these. Marathon training. This is my own personal hobby and interest. I ran a marathon years ago. I'm going to be doing another one. You can see I've got a lot of different web links and information, but this is just a key thought to keep track of how many miles I'm up to. The next couple of weekends, you can see I've got it highlighted in red there. I'll be running a 15 miler so that hopefully by late September, I'll be ready for my 26.2 run. So these are the checklists, and I'll be talking about checklists in just a moment as well. And real quickly, I think that's probably all the different samples. You can see right here, it's just a recipe. I copy and paste or write down recipes in the brain. Sometimes if it's on a URL, I'll just drag and drop it into my brain, but there's no guarantee that that URL will stay there over the course of time. You know, the Martha Stewart might change her web address, or the page isn't getting visited enough, so the owner of the page deletes it, it's gone. I copy and paste a lot of content into my notes. I'll drag and drop web pages in as well, but if it's really important information that I want to archive, I will copy and paste content right there into the notes. And here's a great example. And so let's go ahead and jump into a new note that I've just started creating. And that is my master checklist. Here it is, my pre-launch checklist. So I've got a summer vacation coming up with my family, and I'm making a checklist here in the brain. So I just want to share with you a couple of quick features that I use in the notes to capture information and come back and maintain that information and refer back to it very easily. A couple of great tips. So here I spared you the trouble of my slow typing, and I actually typed this note out already. No big deal there. Notice when I click on the note, so I activate the thought, it activates the note, and I tap or click over in the note area, it automatically opens up my note toolbar. Now there's two different ways to view the notes toolbar. You can have an expanded toolbar or one that's been contracted to fit your screen. By default, the toolbar has been contracted, so there's a lot of drop-down menus. It saves the most space. That's a setting in your preferences. If you go into options and preferences, on a Mac, you would click on the brain preferences, and you just specify whether or not you want to, for the notes on the UI tab, there it is, use the compact toolbars or not. So I uncheck this, so all my toolbar options are always there in my notes. Now the first thing I want to do is select some text. I can select the whole line or just click in the line, change this from normal view to a title. So these are things that I must do. Down below is my wish list. I'll make that a title as well. Now the notes I just want to share with you have been completely re-engineered from the ground up in version 9 of the brain. We've made them simple, easy to use, and consistent throughout the brain. You may have noticed as I click from thought to thought, everything has a nice, clean, simple layout in the structure of the brain. So we've really sort of minimized all the notes, the toolbar really, to take up the least amount of space and still preserved the best features. So I'm not going to go through what each button does here in the notes area. You can play around with those, but I want to share with you some key sort of ingredients to keeping track of notes that really, really pay off. And the first that I really love is the checklist. So I'm going to select a group of thoughts here. And the checklist actually appears, let me give the notes just a little more screen real estate. The checklists appear right here next to bulleted lists, numbered lists, and there's the checkboxes. So I just simply click and suddenly each individual thought has a checkbox. I am a believer of getting things done. It was a very popular book that was written by David Allen years ago. David Allen is actually a user of the brain, and you can find on our website webinars that we had with David Allen where he shows off his brain. David Allen loves checkboxes. I love them too. It's great for project management. It's great for everything, I think. So you can keep track of what's getting done, what needs to get done, and and make sure that projects get completed that you started, start to finish. So as I go through my list, I don't have anything to check off here quite yet, but this is all just a simple checklist for a hiking camping trip that I'm doing with my family in Glacier National Park. So you can see it falls under my 2018 Montana thought. And here I've got sort of an outline of what we're going to be doing each day. I've got links to where we're renting equipment or who we're going horseback riding with, our reservation numbers, etc. But there's my pre-launch checklist. So these are things I need to get done before we head out in a couple of weeks. And when something gets done and completed, I'll simply check those off the list. It's that simple. And from time to time, it's also important to add a little timestamp as well. Particularly, I add timestamps in my business brain, but also if something comes with some type of warranty or guarantee, maybe I needed to change the tires, I'll add that as a list. So change the tires. When that task gets complete, I'm actually going to check that off the list, and I might even timestamp that. So here's our timestamp button, a little calendar icon in the notes. I'll timestamp. So I'll know, oh, and it added right where my cursor was. Let me just remove that and put my cursor at the end and timestamp one more time. So I know specifically when I had those tires installed. So if they are under warranty, and of course I can keep more notes in my brain, I know when they went on, and they should be good for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, what have you. So timestamp is another really, really great feature. But I can revisit this note and add new content at any time. Down below, you can see I've got a really simple wish list. I don't need to make that a checkbox. That's just if I happen to get to it. And I can add on more content there as we go. A few more features that I wanted to share with you in the notes. Someone specifically asked about linking a file or linking an idea to multiple locations within the brain as well. Shelley showed some great examples of this. I'm going to share a few more. Notice that I've got check the brakes at Riverside Automotive. So Riverside Automotive is my actual mechanic that I go to, and I have a thought in my brain for Riverside Automotive. So pre-launch checklist maybe isn't a child thought of Riverside Automotive, but I need to give them a call, make an appointment, so I can connect this thought to, and I'll just type in the word river. I've got a lot of thoughts that contain the word river, but right there at the top, oh, that's River West, which is a little different than Riverside. So I can double click and link that up to Riverside Automotive. That's my mechanic that I use, and I can call, I've got his phone number there, of course, and make that appointment. But another trick that I can do in the brain, sometimes I don't need to visualize that relationship or visualize that link. So I'm actually going to unlink this. You can always go back and edit, modify the structure of your brain at any time. So I just right click and unlink Riverside Automotive from pre-launch checklist. And here in my brain, if you ever type something into the notes and that exists as a thought in the same brain, I can highlight that content. And once again, there's a button in the brain's note toolbar, so I can click and insert a link to that existing thought. I don't need to visualize the relationship, but as I'm going through my checklist, oh, I haven't called to make an appointment for my brakes quite yet. Let's do that now. I can just click on that link in the note and go right back to that, that other thought. So very handy little trick when you don't need to visualize the relationship. Let's jump back to the pre-launch checklist and a few more features here within the notes that I want to share with you. As I mentioned earlier, the notes in the brain are all very clean, simple, easy to use with a consistent display throughout the brain. The brain is highly customizable, so you can really modify the application to best fit your thought process, whether you're linking to files and attachments or moving them into the brain. And the appearance of the brain is no exception. The brain should be a digital representation of your own organic brain. And so therefore, we allow you to change the wallpaper. You notice I've got some clouds on a picture that I like, and I change my the look and feel of the brain from time to time, depending on the season or depending on my focus. And the notes can handle those changes as well. So I'm going to left click, or excuse me, right click over in the Plex. You can also click on options and go down to Brain theme. So a couple of ways to get into your Brain theme. And from here, not only can you change your wallpaper and sort of the look and feel of the Plex of the Brain, what colors the thoughts are, what colors the links are, etc. But you can also go on the Options tab and customize your notes. So the Notes drop-down menu allows, these are the defaults that are loaded up into the Brain, but you can customize and create and save your own custom note themes. So I'll just share a few with you. You can see I'm on the modern display. So there's no serifs or no curly cues. If you want that look, that's called the classic. So I can switch over to classic. So you can see now it has the little curly cues on all the letters. But let's take some more drastic changes. I can go into the dark style for notes. And let me just take a moment just to load that up. So let me come back to my pre-launch checklist. And there you can see, again, depending on your mood, your environment, what's easiest on your eyes. I've got a light text on a dark background. I can also get to that note setting for styles right here. Just click on the little Mr. Mustache Man to change the note style to draft, another very sort of techie looking, sort of vintage techie looking display. And of course, go in and customize my own notes. So I'm just going to grab a different Magneto. That looks interesting. A little hard to read, but we'll just stay there for now. So Magneto with, you can see I recently was playing around with a few different colors. So whatever best fits your mood, you can really change the application around to fit your personality, and the notes, again, no exception. And of course, at any time, if I want to say, you know what, let's just go right back to the modern, I can go back to that modern display. So many different options there for you for setting up notes, adjusting the look and feel of the note. A few more things that I want to share with you. You saw that I had web pages, or not web pages, but videos loading up right there in the notes. I really quickly want to show you how easy it is to do. And I've got a web page here that I found earlier. I'm looking at possibly bringing a hammock with me on my camping trip with my family. So I am going to, and again, I could just type in new hammock. Hammock. Thank goodness the brain has spell check. I don't even know how to spell hammock. There we go. So new hammock. And I don't want any new hammock. I specifically want the REI sub 7 Eno. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this, or I'm just going to right click on the image, copy that image, and right here in the brain, I'm going to paste. I was about to do it with the keyboard, but I'll do it with the mouse, right click and paste. So I know that I've got a picture of that specific hammock that I'm looking for. And one step further, rather than dragging and dropping and adding this as an attachment in the content, I'm just going to copy that URL, and once again, new line, and I'll paste. So the brain truncates that full URL. It displays the name of the web page, but it's got that nice little link button. So I can just tap and launch that website. Another really, really easy way to get content quickly into the brain. So one more feature here on the desktop that I'll share with you before I actually jump into using the brain on my iOS device. The feature that I wanted to share with you, or just the idea that I want to share with you, if this is something that's important to you. Now that I've got this checklist here, and I've got checklists for other thoughts elsewhere in my brain, I want to be able to find all of my incomplete checklist items within my brain. That's important. I've got a lot of them in my brain. And if I'm not visiting that thought, how am I going to know, hey, here's something that's not done yet. There's a checklist that's incomplete. I didn't check one thing off. And the way I like to do that is with thought tags. Tags are a great way of identifying attributes of thoughts within the brain. If I go to my tag list, I keep my tags very, very simple in this particular brain. My business brain, I've got a lot more tags depending on clients or projects or timelines, etc. But here you can see I keep a very, very simplistic checklist. It's up to you to create your own checklist, or not checklist, excuse me, tag list. You can create your own tag list manually, and we also have some brains that you can import that will pre-populate your tag lists as well. But this tag list, you can see I've got sort of whether I like it or don't like it. So 1-star versus 5-star. And I can click on my tag. All right, show me all 5-star items in my brain. And these are things ranging from Many Glacier Lodge, a hotel or lodge that I really like, a restaurant that I like in Madison, Wisconsin, forequarter, races that I like, and a project that I'm working on. My son is building a boat, so I have Spencer's boat. I love that he's doing it. We're reading a couple of different books together and designing his boat, etc. So that's one of my 5-star thoughts within my brain. So if I sit down to my brain and I want to review all the fun stuff that I really like, I can just click on my tag and go to my 5-star thoughts. And as I'm creating thoughts within the brain, I can assign them 5-star, 1-star. What's 1-star? 1-star is, I don't even know. Oh, the dentist. I don't like going to the dentist, but this is my dentist. He's great, but I don't like going to the dentist, so I marked as 1-star. And here's a great example. I marked this as 1-star. This is a race that I did with my wife, the Bradford Beach Triathlon. We cut our foot on some glass in the parking lot that wasn't cleaned up, the transition area, and it was very poorly organized. So for a number of reasons, we'll never be doing this triathlon again. Now, I kept the information here so I can share it with others, open up the web page, review, see when they're doing it, what have you. But I've got for myself a reminder: don't sign up for this triathlon unless I know these issues that I'm concerned about have been fixed. So a couple of different examples of tags. I'm going to now create a new tag for my unfinished checklists. Every time I create a checklist, I'll assign it to this, a tag to this thought. When everything on the list is done, I'll simply remove the tag. It's that simple. So on the thought, I'm going to click on my pre-launch checklist and tap to add a new tag. So my new tag is you can name it whatever naming convention works for you. Unfinished items, action items. I'm simply going to call it tasks or a task. This is a task item. So new thought called, or a new tag called task. And you can see it by default adds a little tag icon there. I'm going to go to my tag for task. And I'm actually going to change the attributes. You can assign icons to your tag. You notice I had a happy face and a sad face for 5 stars versus 1. So all of my tasks, I can change the color that a task tag will appear, add a tag abbreviation, so what displays when I mouse over. I can even say incomplete item. And I'm going to add an image. So I visually identify a task that needs to be completed as maybe a picture of a stopwatch or a clock. So I'll select the stock icon. I've customized my own icon list with icons I like. You can do that as well. And I think in UI, user interface type images, I can probably find a clock. There's a clock. Perfect. So I'll use that as a tag. And I've got that marked as medium priority, but there's also some unfinished tasks. So a thought can have multiple tags. They can be urgency levels, important levels, whatever fits your business environment. For me, I'm keeping track of all incomplete tasks that I have in my personal life in this brain. And to get them to them, I'll just go to that task tag and find all thoughts that have been tagged that are incomplete with that task tag. A little bit of a tongue twister. I picked a tricky word for a new tag, task tag. So that's a really, really great way to, again, just identify everything in your brain that is a to-do item. And finally, one last component. I'm going to go to my home thought. I really love having this thought within my brain. As I said earlier, this particular brain has 5,000 plus thoughts. But anytime I get a real quick idea, whether it's urgent or important, a big idea, a small idea, I've got this one thought in my brain that I call to be filed. And this particular thought has just some random ideas. Sometimes this thought is really overloaded and I've got a long list. But when I get some extra time, I'll come back and look at this. It's going to be a wide range of topics. So I haven't been to this thought in a little while. My kids are looking at getting a new dog. So we're looking at French Spaniels versus Springer Spaniels. That's some research I have to do some point in the future. I just dropped it in here. We're going on our trip soon. Find a good riddle book. My youngest son, August, loves riddles. So I'm actually going to copy that content and move it out of my 2B files and jump over into my tasks, pre-launch checklist. I want that book for this trip, so I'm actually going to add it here. There, I found a home for that thought. I collect all those little thoughts in that one, or those ideas on that one to-be filed thought, and then paste them in elsewhere in my brain, or create a thought on that topic and start adding content, research from the web when I have some time to work that out. So a couple of different options for you for quick capture ideas in the brain.
While you're activating, somebody did actually ask, you know, does my brain automatically sync? How do I set up sync? So
that's a great question. It doesn't by default. Yeah, it will not automatically start syncing. It will start automatically syncing, and that feature can be turned on and off here. Let me just, here on my desktop, there's the cloud button. That is the button that will sync your brain up to the cloud. There's a little drop-down menu. I'll wait till this sync is done. But there's a little drop-down menu. See, it's telling me no changes are necessary. So everything is up to date. By default, once you start syncing to the brain cloud, you will start syncing automatically. Now, you can turn that off if you don't want to sync automatically. You want to play around, make sure you like everything, and then sync your brain. If you're sharing your brain, you don't want it to sync mid-change or before you finished a project to share with the rest of your team. So it's up to you whether you want it to auto-sync or not. And there's some more options here in the online drop-down menu as well. So you can get to this thought online. Fine, let's do that. Let's open this thought in the web client. So I'll log in.
Glad you're covering that, because somebody was also asking, how do I see my brain online? So just, I mean, this is probably obvious, but it may not be. So you've got your desktop client installed on your desktop. You have web client that you can look that same brain online, and you can also do it from a phone and also multiple machines, and it'll sync through all of them. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there you can see I've got one thought, my Matt Caton thought in the brain. On the left, we have the URL, the web client. On the right, we have the desktop client. And now I'll go ahead and pull up.
All right, great, because Lisa's asking, does the mobile app auto sync? Like, so she's making a thought in her brain on her desktop. Is that going to automatically sync to what she's got on her phone?
Not exactly. It's going to, if you've got auto sync on the desktop, it certainly can. So you can auto sync on the desktop. Then on the phone, let me go ahead and open the brain. And notice here's my list of all the different brains I have for different topics. And I'm going to launch the same brain I've been in today. This is my actual phone. So if you can see me, I'm holding up my phone, and there's what I'm broadcasting on the screen. So there's my phone on the desktop, and let's go ahead and navigate to my pins. I can tap on the pin button, and I'll go to my sample notes. And notice that I haven't synced this recently. So there's a sync button right down here on your mobile device. So your mobile device has to be synced. And I'm going to sync now my mobile device. And all of the recent thoughts that I've added in this particular area will then be updated.
And Matt,
there we go. So now I've got my pre-launch checklist. So there you can see everything. And even the modifications that I made today are right there on my mobile device. And this is really the key to instant capture in the brain. My brain desktop version might not be with me wherever I go. If I take a step out, I'm out to lunch, I'm on an airplane, I'm in a taxi. Do I have my brain with me? I do. It's on my phone. So I can really quickly jump into my phone, and let's say Laura, my wife, says, hey, I think we might need a new cooler. So it's not on my checklist, but it's on the wish list. Like, great, if we could get a new cooler. I'm just going to hit return and type in. There, boom, I've done it, I've saved it, and I'll go back to my brain and once again resync. So changes on my phone locally here on my phone are now being synced to the cloud. And then next time I come back to my desktop, and it takes me a little while to minimize my phone and stuff, but there you can see sort of in the background, I'll resync, and that will
and I just want to
update
point
my
out, this is
notes over
actually
here on the right. New
faster
cooler.
too.
Yeah.
He's using a simulating technology to get his phone on the screen. But you know, if you were actually to create a thought on your desktop and then go to your phone, it happens actually quite a bit faster.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Yeah, it takes a minute just for this to bring up this app that I'm broadcasting. I didn't mean bring up the Brain app, but bring up the broadcasting app. But there you can see I can launch, I can search here from within my phone as well, and I can easily get to those pins. So I'm on the road, I've got one of those quick capture ideas. I don't have a home for it yet in my brain. I don't know what to do with this thought idea I have about a new, how about a faster broadcasting utility? I'm going to go to my home thought, and on my to be filed, I'll open up that note and type in faster broadcasting app, etc. So whatever idea I have, I'll just save that right there in my phone. And there's a lot that you can do on the phone. Today is not all about just how to use the iOS app. We've got some really helpful tutorials and webinars available on that topic. But also I can add, just down below looking at the buttons, as you can see, I can add file attachments. So I can send them to the iOS app has an inbox. So there I'll open my inbox. I've got a couple of web pages that I threw into my inbox that, again, I haven't found a home for yet. I can even take a picture or open up my existing pictures on my camera to attach those to thoughts here on my iOS app as well. So with that, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. I see we're a little bit past the hour, but Shelley, obviously I wanted to see if any additional questions came in today that we need to address. So I'm going to stop broadcasting and go right back to the desktop.
Now, John is asking, how can I add a thought via share in iOS?
Sure. To add a thought in iOS, so you're on the road, you're on your mobile device. Let me go back to my phone. I love this. I'm having some fun with this new app. So this is fun to share this.
I am too, because we never show the phone in that way. So maybe it's just novelty for me. But I'm like, ooh, we can see Matt's phone on the web. This isn't GoToMeeting functionality. This is an additional technology.
This is a little app that I found
but anyway.
that I'm enjoying. So here's my phone that I'm navigating or controlling here from my actual iPhone. And if I want to create, so the question is new thought on your new idea while you're on your mobile device. So let's say I want to create a new thought just simply called vacations here under my Matt Caton thought. There's a plus tab. So you can see it here. There's the plus tab. I'm going to tap on that. So now I can say new vacation ideas. So I can create that, as you can see at the top, I can create that as a child thought, a jump thought, or as a parent thought. I'll leave it on child thought and just tap on create. So that creates a new thought, new vacation ideas. And from there, I can even link to existing thoughts. So let's say this Montana trip that I have coming up, I want to tap on the plus sign, new child thought. I'll start typing in Montana. Now notice I'm just going to pause, and suddenly the brain says, hey, you already have all of these thoughts that match whatever it is that you've typed in so far. So I'll tap on Montana and link my existing Montana thought to this new vacations idea. So again, you can link to existing content within this large brain that I have. And as you can see, continue on navigating. So there's my 2018 Montana trip and all the research instantly accessible from my iPhone. Now that I've made these changes, again, if I want to see these on the desktop from the mobile device, I'll tap on the sync button and initiate the sync from my phone. So the changes you're doing on your phone are local on that device. Now I've synced to those changes back up to the Brain cloud. And when I return to my desktop, I'll go all the way back up to Montana and resync here from the desktop. I'm just forcing a sync. The auto sync would eventually kick in, but now you can see that new Montana thought there in the background is clicking to new vacation ideas under the Matt Caton thought. So all the information, again, accessible for now and mirroring one another, both from my mobile device and on the desktop.
Is it possible to attach
there.
files on your iPad brain directly to like photos? She wants to attach a photo to a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So here,
phone?
once again, yeah, on my phone, I'm going to click on, let's tap back to my pre-launch checklist. Great. And there's a little paperclip at the bottom. So I tap on the paperclip, and there's no current attachments, but I do have an inbox. So apps will allow you to, particularly the thing that I attach most are web pages. So if I go out to my web browser, so I'll open up Safari. I'm a big Major League Baseball fan, so yes, I have some baseball statistics with the last web page that I was on. So I really like this Major League Baseball web search for the statistics. I'm gonna click on share, and right there at the bottom, you can see add to the brain. So from your web browser, I'm in Safari. If you've downloaded the Chrome, I might even be in Chrome, I can't really tell. But particularly from the web browsers that are on mobile devices, you will always see by default the add to the brain. So just tap on share, look for that add to the brain. So I'll add my MLB standings. And as you can see, the item was successfully added. Thank you. And so now I'll go back to the brain. And you may notice that there are 3 attachments in my brain inbox. So I tap, and I want to be able to search through, for whatever reason, Major League Baseball while I'm doing my research for my my Montana trip. I'll go back. This is my real brain, so I'll go back and fix this later. But now you can see I've got, I was in the Google app, so it gives me the Google icon, and I have that added as an attachment, so I can launch my Major League Baseball standings right there from that particular thought. And once I sync on the desktop, that link will appear to that web page on the desktop as well.
All right, great. And we have a question from Johnny. My wife's computer is at the other end of the house. We both have the brain. Can we share in some way? And then he says we use Syncology NSA for the house files. And just real quick, there is a sync. You can use the team brain, or you can sync between computers. We can't, because the brain is a database in its own right, you can't actually use like a Dropbox or another synchronization program to sync the brain. It's a little bit too complex. It's not like just syncing folders. But yeah, I love having a team brain or shared brain with a spouse or a coworker is fabulous. So that is something that you can set up.
Absolutely, and I'll share with you just a couple of quick features. Again, that we could talk for an hour or more about the benefits of Team Brain. But Team Brain allows multiple people to be editors within the same brain database. Now, this is a sample Team Brain that Shelley and I and many other colleagues here at the Brain share. And so anytime I sync some content, make some edits, I'm just going to click on the history for this thought. So I'm going to tap or click on the thought and open up the history. And as you can see, many different people have been modifying this particular thought, mostly me on this particular thought, but the brain keeps track of who's modifying a thought, when those modifications took place, what was actually changed. So there's accountability. I know which thoughts Shelley's modified. I can run a report and find those. I think we even, in this particular brain, we have tags, so I can see what Shelley is working. There we go. So Shelley is currently focusing on doing some marketing research. If I want to go in and start modifying these thoughts, maybe I'll drop a line over to Shelley first to see what she thinks, since she sort of has ownership of this area of my brain. So again, a lot that you can do with sharing a brain through Team Brain. You can find out more on our website. And if you have specific questions, or if you even want to start a Team Brain trial with a group of colleagues, whether it's just 2 people using the brain or 10 or 100, we've got many different options for you. But also, let me share this really quickly. You can take a brain that you've created and share it with the world in read-only mode. So for this particular brain, I'm going to click on the online menu in the Brain app and open up Brain Access and Sharing. Now on a Team Brain, this is where I give Shelly editor access, reader access, what have you. But I'm also checking this box, allow public access, which means I can take this URL. This is the URL for this brain. I can tweet it out. I can embed it in my own website. So the brain launches in my own customized, in a window within my own customized website. But the whole world can then navigate through the brain that I've created and open up attached content and review. We've got some great samples. I'm not sure if we have time to share that today. Jerry's Brain, and you can go to www.jerrysbrain.com if you'd like to see what an online brain looks like and to even see how responsive it is. That's a great example of how scalable the brain is. Boy, he's getting closer and closer to 1 million thoughts in that brain, and you can go click through that brain and find information on a wide variety of topics and see how quickly you can navigate and find related information in his online brain that he has embedded on his website. So many different ways to share a brain, whether it's editor or as read-only.
All right, great. And just to get back to Mark's question in the Q&A, you can buy a license, the Pro license for $219, but if you do want to get synchronized, there's a $299 combo, which gets you cloud services and synchronization. So those are different options. So if you want to do the sync, I'd recommend the Pro combo that enables the synchronization. All right, so back to just some earlier questions. And just to let you know, we're going to go another 5 to 7 more minutes since we do have so many questions. But for those of you that do have to leave, we're running over the hour. There will be a recording of it. You will be emailed that recording, and it will also be posted on our homepage. So thanks for joining us today. But I see there are lots of questions earlier on in the session, so I'm going to go back to the top here and cover some earlier stuff that we chatted about. And the first question that came in was from David. He wanted us to speak to the possibility of linking OneNote entries into the Brain 9.
Oh, yes. As I told you earlier, my organic brain sometimes forgets. But yes, I saw that post come in earlier, and I therefore actually opened up OneNote. It's very, very simple the way, and very effective, the integration that we have with OneNote. And this also, just so everybody knows, goes along with all of the different types of online note-taking utilities or file storage utilities, OneDrive, Google Drive, Max, Dropbox, etc. So there are many different utilities out there, and OneNote is one of them. It's great for notes. Not everybody uses OneNote, so every now and then I get something sent to me from, they put it up online and they're sending me their OneNote link or their Dropbox link, etc. Pretty much everything in these types of apps that I've mentioned has a URL associated with it, whether they call it their share URL, shareable link, link address, local link. There's a lot of different names that they use, but it's really just a URL. And with OneNote, you can see I can right click on anything. I can click on the note or the book or the tab, but just about anything I click on, here they call it copy the link to the paragraph. Over here it would be copy the link to the section, etc. So I want to copy that link onto my clipboard. Now OneNote is unique. It's not like a typical URL, so you can't paste it into the brain as right click and paste web link. But I can paste it into the notes, and watch what happens when I just paste into my notes. I'll right click and select paste. And I get 2 links. From OneNote, you will always get 2 links. The first link takes you to the local version. So if you are running OneNote and from your brain you want to link to a paragraph you created or a section or a book or a page, whichever, I've got the link to the local version, or I've got a link to the web view. So depending on which button I click on, and there it wants me to log in. I don't know that I have a login. Maybe I do. That's going to try and activate it. So let's just go to the local one. I'll click, and there it takes me. It opens up OneNote. If it's not already open, it takes you to that particular item that you linked to. So some pretty unique integration with OneNote. Copy that link and paste it into your notes within the brain for an easy link. That being said, we are looking into future integration of these types of apps. And maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but everyone uses something different. There's just as many people out there sort of moving away from OneNote or Evernote and into the brain as there are people that are looking for alternatives to Dropbox or Google Drive or what have you. So we've got a long list of different types of apps to integrate, and we do in some capacity integrate with pretty much all of them. This is how we integrate with OneNote. Copy that link into your note in the brain.
All right, great. And actually that applies for contacts. A lot of people were asking about contacts, like Salesforce.com, for instance. Anything that has a URL, whether that is a web page or an intranet page or an online application, that URL can be attached to a thought and therefore launched through the brain, so the brain can become sort of that remote control for all your information.
Absolutely.
All right, and
if there's ever, I'll just really quickly interject to that, if there's ever an application that you're unsure about exactly how it works, because OneNote has the unique feature of going into the note of the brain rather than as a URL. If there's ever an application that you're not sure about or it seems like you can't figure it out, send a note into support@thebrain.com and we'll get a response back to you, or we'll do a little bit of testing and see if we can get some integration into that type of app, whatever it is.
Great, and Dr. Bob has a question. In earlier versions of Brain, I used to move thoughts. I'm looking at my world politics subjects, diplomacy in NATO, and I have a number of child thoughts below. Example, 10 of them. I'd like to move the child thoughts visually around the parent thought into different parts of the plex and aggregate them according to themes that emerge. How can I see more of my thoughts?
Right. So
Here's
I believe, yeah. Oh, down under, great. So hello, Australia. And I believe, Dr. Bob, what you're referring to is what we used to call expanded view. So expanded view actually allowed you to say, all right, this thought is going to be right over here, and marketing is going to appear right up here, et cetera. So that's something that is in active development right now. We're looking into the possibilities of bringing that feature back. One feature that I do want to share with you, I think it's a lot easier to use. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback on the mind map view. So I'm going to minimize my notes for right now. There's some controls on the bar that separates the plex from the attachment area, and I'm going to minimize the notes. So I'm full screen with the structure of the brain, or the plex as we like to call it, and I'm going to adjust the size of the thoughts with my slider to give myself a little more screen real estate, and now switch into mind map view. So today, Shelly and I noticed earlier, if you were paying attention, Shelly was actually in expanded view. She was viewing 2 generations away from the active thought. I'm now in what we call mind map view, so I can systematically say, do I want to visualize my customers? Yes, I do. So when I mouse over customers, I have a plus sign, and I can hit the plus. And I also want to see suppliers and retail customers. Now, while I'm here, I also want to expand and see all of my different projects I'm working on. So I'm going to hit plus on projects and maybe even product design research that's going on. So you can see I'm deciding which areas of the brain I want to expand and visualize. If I decide, well, IT projects, that's not really important to me right now. I'm having a meeting with my marketing team, and we want a big high-level overview of how all of our projects are working together. So let's not worry about IT right now. Let's collapse IT. Those are either going to be a plus sign or a minus sign if you want to collapse. It doesn't delete, it just removes that from the view. Distribution, yeah, I do want to see that, so we'll expand, and shipping is important right now, so we'll expand that as well. So this is the mind map view in the brain, and it's a really, really great way to get a high-level overview of different projects or different areas of your brain. And you can continue on using the brain this way as well. Packaging, I want to make sure that jackets that we're working on, the materials have the proper packaging. So maybe I just want to jump thought between these two. So packaging and jacket materials. I'll just make a connection between those two. So when I go back to my normal view and I do a quick search for packaging, I can see that packaging has that jump thought over to materials under jackets, which is in product design. So a lot of different viewing options, but the view that you specifically mentioned, that expanded view, is something that we're looking into bringing back in a future release. Right now, the expanded view, if I click the plus sign up above, I can see 2 generations away from the active thought instead of just 1 generation. So that's an option for you as well.
And David asked in a couple follow-up questions to your mind map view from David and Kirby. David asked, can the children in mind map view be moved to other visual nodes? And then Kirby asked, adding to mind map viewing, can you change the active thought in this view as well, in the mind map view?
Absolutely. So let me just jump back into mind map view. So let's say I'm going to activate JT Apparel. I right click and select activate thought. So just a right click to activate the thought. So that, and that's so that you don't accidentally, if I'm looking around and oops, I clicked on materials, that expanded it, but it didn't destroy this lovely view that I've taken the time to create. Sort of a safety net. So to activate a thought, now I want to activate static control. I right click and activate thought. And that's my current active thought. And to go back, I'll right click on JT Apparel and activate that thought. So sort of a safety net to navigate. Yes, you can move thoughts around as well to relink them. But to do that, instead of clicking and dragging on the thought, what's hot is a jump thought off of JT Apparel. I want that to be a child thought of static control. So I simply click to, whoops, I didn't get the right gate. There, I'll click the gate and link what's hot over to static control. And now I right click and unlink what's hot from JT Apparel. So now you can see that's a child thought. So I have moved that thought. It's just a little bit of a different process. When you're in normal view, you can click and drag a thought as a parent versus a child versus a jump of the active thought. In mind map view, make the connection and then remove the old connection. So a 2-step process, but you can certainly still do it.
All right, great. And then I think with that, we're going to end today's session. One question did come in from Mariana about scheduling. So I'm going to close the webinar and just real quick, maybe just showing the calendar, our visual. Oh,
fantastic.
And Khalil's asking, sorry, no, somebody else is catching our attention. Okay, so we'll show the calendar. And then Khalil's asking, you did a great job of revamping TheBrain version 8 to 9, speed and ergonomics. Will the next generation of your software enhance reporting to manage big data and complex relationships of our growing brain? Well, we're always working on enhancing reporting, and yes, complex relationships with growing brain. I mean, that's sort of a huge category, but in general, yes, we're definitely going to enhance reporting in next versions of the software. That's really about all I can say. So I hope that's the question you wanted answered urgently, Khalil. And real quick, we'll show our visual calendar. And thanks for all the questions. There's just been a ton. I want to remind everyone that we have TheBrain 101 tomorrow, hosted by none other than the fabulous Matt Caton. So you can join him tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I can assure you every single question in that class gets actually demoed, and a lot of time, because it's a smaller class time, so it actually ends within the hour and you get everything demoed. So if we didn't cover something today, we have free support for everyone. You can chat in through our website, email us, but you can also use the 101 classes that happen every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time as just another support gathering. You can log in the last 10 minutes even and get your questions demoed. So do take advantage of those. They're fabulous.
Great. So let's take a look at the calendar really quickly. The calendar is a great way to, if you use calendar for organizing and you want all of your information in your brain, events that are taking place in your brain to get into your calendar, or events in your calendar to get into your brain, you can synchronize your brain, the brain timeline, the calendar within the brain, with Google Calendar. But first, let's talk about just creating an event. So I went back to my personal brain, and let's say I am going to be checking the brakes. I made my appointment at Riverside Automotive, and I'm going to be checking the brakes on Monday at 10 o'clock. So I typed in Monday. I can even say at 10 a.m. Now, this is great. If I happen to navigate across this spot Monday before 10, I'll say, oh gosh, I've got an appointment. What would really be great is if the brain reminded me, hey, Matt, you've got an appointment at 10 o'clock. So I want to set up an event and a reminder right here within the Brain application. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. First, I'm going to open up the Brain timeline just so you can see it. I use, that's the reports. Sorry, there is the timeline down below. Now I use the timeline in my personal brain very, very sparingly. In my business brain, I use it quite extensively. But here in my personal brain, there's no, I don't really need to look up my turkey recipe at 3 o'clock on Friday. So I use it very sparingly, but you can see there are some events. I check in every Monday on my running schedule to make sure that I'm staying on track. If I sort of zoom out, you can click and zoom on the calendar. You can see I've got my Montana trip mapped out in my calendar, and some other things, events on weekends with the family here and there will appear. So now let's set up my appointment for Monday. As I mentioned, there's a few different ways to do it. I could click on the plus tab to add an attachment to the spot. What is the attachment? It is an event. So I click on create event. You can also click and drag down below in the calendar. If you've got the exact time, you can zoom in to Monday at 10 o'clock and click and drag and attach that new event you're creating to the active thought. I've tapped over on the right. Now I clicked away, so it saved the event. Let's go in and modify it with the correct date and time. And I am going to make this on Monday. So Monday, July 16th at 10 a.m. And it is a 1-hour event, so it ends at 11. And I'm going to rename the actual event. It's on the thought pre-launch checklist, but checking the brakes. So I've named my event, and here's the important part. I'm going to have the brain remind me about this event. So 10 minutes before 10 o'clock, I can go a day before 10 o'clock or an hour before. I'll actually make this remind me 21 days before. The reason why I'm doing this is so you can see what the pop-ups look like. So I'll say, okay, 21 days before the event, I'll be reminded that it's time to check the brakes. And they're already, you can see almost as soon as I close the window, the brain is saying, you're late. So pre-launch checklist, checking the brakes, happening on July 16th at 10 a.m. So there's my reminder that will pop up when the brain is open. I want to snooze this for 10 minutes. So I'll go ahead and click on the Z's. If I'm still in this brain for 10 minutes, you'll see it pop up again. But the last component that I'll share with you is I've taken my brain, and if you click on in the Timelines context menu button to open up the Google Calendar settings, I have synchronized my brain with my personal Gmail Google Calendar. So therefore, everything that I add into the brain, every time I click that sync button, it's syncing to my Google Calendar. And if I happen to be in my Google Calendar and I add a new event, that event is going to be synced the next time I sync my brain, or it syncs automatically for me. It's going to show up in my brain calendar. So again, we've got some great tutorials about this online. This is one of the more advanced features, and you do need to be a pro combo user of the brain in order to use the Google Calendar sync to have that activated within the application. And it's a really great way to, again, get those instant reminders, have the brain, the digital brain, remind you about your events, and synchronize that with your Google Calendar as well. To take it one step further really quickly, I realized, and we realize, not everyone uses Google Calendar, but Google Calendar is really great in that you can synchronize just about anything with it. So whether you're using your Apple Calendar or Apple Cal or Outlook, you can synchronize through Google Calendar. So Google Calendar is the glue that holds the brain and your Outlook calendar together and keeps everything in sync. It's really amazing. It's a fantastic feature of the Brain 9, and it's a great way to, again, just integrate, time and events and reminders into your brain as well.
All right, great. And I think with that, we're going to end today's session. So I want to thank all of you who are still on for the marathon session on remembering everything, instant idea capture, visual notes, and thought trails. Matt, before we close out today's session, any other final thoughts or ideas you want to share with the group?
I'm glad you mentioned the Brain 101. We have them once a week, every week. So if you didn't get your questions today, we may have had a couple hundred people on today's call. So obviously we can't get to all those questions. I do make a point to get to all of the questions on Brain 101. So feel free to join tomorrow or next week or the next if you'd like. And we're happy to give you a customized demo on the Brain 101 and take you really through the basics of the application. So you have that fundamental understanding and start moving on to more advanced features. And if you are interested in more advanced features, check our website. We do have a Brain 202 class coming up. So we are going to be talking about exporting data into other formats and importing data into the brain. So rather than building a brain thought by thought, using different applications to pre-populate brains, it's going to be a great, great webinar for more advanced users.
That's a fun class. Yes, that is in 2 weeks, first week of August. And the 101 class, a lot of you are asking, how do you sign up? It's right on the homepage in the bottom area in our news section. You can also get to it under free web training in support. And again, sign up. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. It's always something available, and that's under upcoming events on our homepage. So with that, we are going to close today's session. Thanks everyone for all the great questions, and we wish you well in your idea capture, visual notes, and thought trails. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you on future brain technology events. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.